Fresh meat.
Welcome to the best horror movie you never saw, where we shine a light on horror movies that you may have missed, haven't seen in a long time, or just plain forgot about. On this episode, we're looking at Antonia Bird's Ravenous, which boasts an outstanding cast that includes Guy Pearce, Robert Carlyle, David Arquette, Jeremy Davies, and Jeffrey Jones. We've previously discussed on this show how horror and comedy are two great tastes that taste great together.
I ate 5 men in 3 months.
Well, prepare those taste buds for a horror comedy quite unlike any you've ever seen before. But is it even fair to label the film as such? It's also a period piece, a western, and even an allegory for America's manifest destiny. That's one of the coolest aspects of Ravenous. It defies easy description. And even in the horror comedy category, it doesn't necessarily fit in with other movies of the genre, since its laughs are of a much grimmer variety than usually found here.
This place thrives on tedium.
I won't lie, I wasn't sold on the film the very first time I saw it, way back in 1999. But, like an appetite that won't go away...
You know, Ben Franklin once said, eat to live. Don't live to eat. Huh?
It has grown on me, and plenty of others, over the years. It can now be recognized as one of the more shrewd and bizarre studio horror pictures of the last few decades. In fact, isn't it now practically impossible to believe a studio like 20th Century Fox even released the film? 20th Century Fox, now owned by Disney, is destined to never make a movie like this again, sadly. So while we have plenty of well-earned critiques of late 90s cinema, let's hear it for when studios actually still took chances on peculiar genre fare that weren't just remakes or comic book adaptations. A gory, dark comedy about the benefits of eating human flesh set during the Mexican-American War? Yeah, they won't be making them like that anymore. Ravenous wasn't a slam dunk to get made, however, and it almost got its throat cut soon after it began production. The first director, Milcho Manchevsky, proved difficult to work with and was fired after 3 weeks, throwing the production into a stalemate. Fox executives actually wanted Home Alone 3 director Raja Gosnell to finish it, but the cast rejected him. Imagine that! So the film's star, Robert Carlyle, called in a favor to Antonia Bird, with whom he had worked a couple of times already, and she took over with only 1 week to prepare. The film had to cut several set pieces for budgetary reasons, and the script was constantly being rewritten by screenwriter Ted Griffin, as well as the cast. Bird did not have very good things to say about working with Fox, who micromanaged every step of the way. So it's amazing that the finished product, which is still a little rough around the edges, especially in the sound and editing departments, turned out to be such a disarming and compelling product.
Yes. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Period horror movies are a tricky thing to pull off, especially ones rooted in a specific historical context. Ravenous takes place during the Mexican-American War and focuses on a traumatized lieutenant named Boyd, who managed to help capture a Mexican stronghold despite literally laying down and playing dead in an effort to avoid conflict.
I played dead. I was buried. With my commanding officers half shot off head in my face.
In the aftermath, his superiors suss out Boyd's cowardice and assign him to Fort Spencer, a lonely outpost in the cold Sierra Nevada, a place populated with military outcasts and misfits. This is a fun bunch of characters, and they bring a welcome counterbalance to the practically comatose Boyd.
So, did anyone do anything today? We have a great sense of camaraderie here at Fort Spencer.
We have the likable, world-weary Colonel Hart, played by Jeffrey Jones, the fidgety Private Toffler, played by Jeremy Davies, still somewhat in Saving Private Ryan mode.
Who entrusts in you?
The drunken ornery Major Knox, played by Steven Spinella, the hardened Private Reich, played by Neil McDonough and his crazy eyes, and the practically incomprehensible Private Cleves, played by David Arquette, who looks like he really got into the character here. The boys are joined by Native American siblings George and Martha, played by Joseph Running Fox and Sheila Tousey, respectively. And throw all these characters into a stew, and you've got a very unstable family unit.
And then there's Private Cleaves. The over-medicated Private Cleaves.
They'd probably get along fine enough together if it weren't for the arrival of Colquhoun, frostbitten stranger who arrives quite unexpectedly. Played by Robert Carlyle, Colquhoun will soon reveal himself to be quite the interesting character, telling the soldiers a terrifying tale of a wagon train that got lost while crossing California. Colquhoun admits he and some meager survivors resorted to cannibalism to survive, but he fled a maniacal colonel who was fixing to eat him next. Before you know it, the whole gang is off to rescue the last survivor of the chowdown, and that's when Ravenous truly becomes a feast for the most adventurous of moviegoers.
He was licking me!
Right!
Yes! Yes!
There will be blood, flesh will be consumed, guts will be spilled, and it's all really rather amusing. The brand of gallows humor Ravenous ultimately deploys is certainly an acquired taste. It's one of those movies where the majority of your friends will sneer, "You actually like that?" Well, a few select few will nod in appreciation. You know the friends I mean. Ravenous, in its first act, is a fairly easygoing movie, with some suspense slowly creeping in as soon as the Carlyle character arrives. That all ends with a bang once we learn a little bit more about this guy and what he's capable of.
We ate the oxen, all the horses, even my own dog.
It's not a spoiler to say he's not the kind of new friend you want to make in the wilderness. The sequence where Colquhoun reveals his true colors is a crackerjack. Quick, messy, and weirdly funny, which is a perfect way to describe the movie as a whole. And while it solidifies Colquhoun as an impressive antagonist, it also underlines Boyd as a most unimpressive protagonist, as his cowardice is once again on display. Although to be fair, not many folks would want to butt heads with this particular maniac. Where Ravenous goes from here is fascinating. Those expecting an action extravaganza or full-blown horror pick from here on will be surprised to learn the screenplay by Ted Griffin has a slightly more philosophical agenda. That's not to say it doesn't maintain its grip on those who've been transfixed by its strange spell.
Good God. We don't want to break up families.
People are not stupid, Ives.
Really?
You'll get caught.
Well, if it's just the two of us.
Like the character of Colquhoun, Ravenous can be mystifying and unnerving, but also undoubtedly captivating. We can't predict where it will go, or what tone it will adopt next. And even those who might find the film a little too talky for their liking can't deny the creepy charisma of Robert Carlyle, who steals every scene he's in.
Well, almost.
And thankfully, he's in a lot of them. The cunning and thoroughly remorseless Colquhoun is a truly memorable villain, and Carlyle makes a meal of the scenery in most sophisticated fashion. Guy Pearce doesn't have as meaty of a role, but that's because Boyd's main characteristics are cowardice and paranoia. Pearce is more than up to the task though, playing the straight man in the midst of a whole bevy of eccentrics. The supporting cast is aces, a who's who of character actors finding colorful ways to liven up the proceedings. Jeffrey Jones in particular is equal parts likable and creepy, as usual, playing a good man gone mad.
It was like drowning in darkness, and then there was nothing.
You have to hand it to Antonia Bird for making such a persuasive and atmospheric film under such unhappy circumstances. Having only a week to prepare for a major motion picture while the studio's breathing down your neck the entire time can't be easy. But Bird crafted a unique horror show that not only delivers on blood and guts, but has some interesting things to say about the forming of the US as well. Want to see Colquhoun as a surrogate for the ferociousness of Western expansion in the 1800s? It's not a stretch, but we won't get too History Channel on you at this point. Bottom line is Ravenous is an intelligent horror movie that still revels in delivering the kind of morbid gross-out fans of the genre demand. One last piece of praise must be given to the movie's unconventional score by Michael Nyman and Damon Albarn. Yes, the frontmen from Blur and Gorillaz. The score is as vivid and unpredictable as the film, sometimes effectively matching the tension on the screen, sometimes diverting wildly and bringing an entirely different tone to the scene. If you listen to the film's main theme on its own, the discordant and melancholic Boyd's Journey, you probably wouldn't associate it with this film at all. Yet when they're paired, a shockingly happy marriage is struck. Like so many elements of Ravenous, it's hard to pin down just why it works so well.
Isn't this civilized?
Maybe it's because it's a risk, it's unconventional, it's imperfect, and not ashamed of it. So don't let this dish get too cold. Watch Ravenous and be sure to pair it with a cut of your favorite steak. Served medium rare, of course. We can't guarantee you'll have an appetite the whole way through, but at least you'll have plenty to chew on.
Bon appetit.